I'm so sorry. I thought I had my wallet. I must have left it in my other purse. The elderly woman's voice trembled with embarrassment as she fumbled through her worn handbag. Rain hammered against the windows of Riverside Cafe, and her silver hair was still damp from the storm outside. She looked fragile, apologetic, utterly defeated. "Ma'am, please, don't worry about it." Connor Hayes stepped forward quickly, his waiter's apron stained from a long shift. "The coffee's on me, really. But I can't just—" "You looked cold when you came in," Connor said gently, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. "Consider it a kindness between strangers. We all need one sometimes." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "You have no idea how much that means. Thank you, young man, truly." Connor smiled, patting her hand. "Stay as long as you need. The rain's not letting up." As he walked away, he didn't notice the way she watched him, studying his every move, the gentleness in how he spoke to other customers, the way he helped an elderly man with his coat. Connor Hayes had no idea that Evelyn Montgomery, 52-year-old billionaire and CEO of Montgomery Industries, had just found exactly what she'd been searching for. Evelyn returned the next day, and the day after that. Each time dressed simply, carrying that same worn handbag, ordering only coffee. She'd spent 3 years testing potential suitors, men who pursued her wealth, her status, her power. Every single one had failed to see past the money. So she devised a test: become invisible, become ordinary, and see who showed kindness without expectation of reward. Connor never failed to greet her warmly. "Mrs. Holloway, your usual table?" She'd given him a false name, weaving a story about being a retired teacher living on a modest pension. Connor believed every word because he had no reason not to. In his 33 years, he'd learned that wealth wasn't measured in money, but in the richness of human connection, a lesson his late mother had taught him before cancer took her 5 years ago. "How's your daughter doing?" Evelyn asked one afternoon, remembering a detail he'd mentioned days before. Connor's face brightened. "Emma's good. She's 7 now, obsessed with drawing. Her mother and we're not together anymore, but we co-parent well. She's staying with her mom this week." "You speak about her with such kindness," Evelyn observed, "even after the separation." "Why wouldn't I? She gave me the greatest gift of my life. Just because we couldn't make our marriage work doesn't mean I stop honoring who she is." Connor wiped down the neighboring table, his voice soft. "Life's too short for bitterness. My mom taught me that. She spent her last months thanking everyone, nurses, janitors, even the person who delivered her meals. She said kindness was the only thing that survived after we're gone." Evelyn's throat tightened. This man, struggling to make ends meet as a waiter, possessed more grace than anyone in her corporate world. Weeks turned into months. Evelyn continued her visits, and Connor continued his quiet acts of kindness, not just to her, but to everyone. She watched him pay for a homeless man's sandwich, saw him stay late to help a coworker whose car had broken down, heard him comfort a crying child who'd spilled her juice. One evening, 4 months into their acquaintance, Evelyn arrived to find Connor sitting alone in the closed cafe, his head in his hands. She tapped gently on the glass door. He looked up, startled, then unlocked it. "Mrs. Holloway, we're closed, but come in. Are you okay?" "I saw you through the window," she said softly. "You look like you needed a friend." Connor laughed bitterly. "My daughter needs surgery. Nothing life-threatening, but her insurance won't cover it all. I've been picking up every extra shift I can, but—" He trailed off, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this." "How much do you need?" Evelyn asked quietly. "No, absolutely not. You're on a fixed income. I'd never." "How much, Connor?" $15,000. The number fell between them like a stone. "I've saved 8. I just need time." Evelyn reached into her bag, not the worn one, but an elegant leather purse she'd brought tonight. She pulled out her checkbook, the one that bore her real name, and began writing. Connor's eyes widened as he read the check, then the name, then looked back at her, his face draining of color. "Evelyn Montgomery," he whispered. "You're the Montgomery? The billionaire?" "I am." She set the check on the table between them. $15,000. And for 4 months, you've treated me with more dignity and kindness than anyone has in years. You saw a lonely old woman who forgot her wallet, and you bought her coffee. You never asked for anything. You never treated me differently. You just saw me as human. Connor stared at the check, then pushed it back. I can't accept this. Why not? Because, his voice cracked, because if I take it, every moment we've shared becomes about this, about money. And that's not what this was. You became someone I looked forward to seeing, someone real. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face. That's exactly why I'm giving it to you. Because you just proved, even knowing who I am, that your kindness wasn't for sale. You'd rather struggle than compromise your integrity. Why did you lie to me? The hurt in his voice was palpable. Because I needed to know, she whispered. I needed to know if genuine human connection still existed in this world. If someone could see past wealth and status to the lonely person underneath. I've spent 3 years searching for a partner, Connor, testing men who wanted my empire, my name, my power. None of them ever saw me. But you saw Mrs. Holloway, a nobody with a worn purse and no wallet, and you showed her compassion. You treated her like she mattered. Connor sat down heavily. So this was a test? At first, but somewhere along the way, her voice broke. It became real. You became the best part of my weeks. Your stories about Emma, about your mother, about choosing kindness even when life is hard. You reminded me why connection matters, why any of this matters. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Connor spoke. I'm not interested in your money, Mrs. Montgomery. I never was. I know. That's why I'm offering you something more valuable. My truth, my real self. The woman who's terrified of dying alone, who's forgotten how to trust, who needed a 33-year-old waiter to remind her that kindness is the only currency that matters. Connor looked at her, really looked, and saw past the deception to the loneliness beneath. The same loneliness he carried, the same hunger for authentic connection. I'm not the man you're looking for, he said gently. I'm not in your world. I have a daughter, responsibilities, an ex-wife. I work in a cafe. I can barely afford. I'm not looking for someone in your world, Evelyn interrupted. I'm looking for someone who can remind me how to be human again. Someone who understands that kindness isn't a transaction. Whether that's friendship or something more, I don't know yet. But I do know I don't want to lose this, whatever this is. Connor picked up the check and tore it slowly in half. Evelyn's heart sank until he said, I'll accept help for Emma's surgery. As a loan, I'll pay you back. But everything else, we start from the truth. No more lies, no more tests. Just two people figuring out if real connection is possible across impossible distances. Fresh tears fell, but now Evelyn was smiling. That's all I've ever wanted. 6 months later, they still met at Riverside Cafe every Wednesday. Connor still worked there, refusing Evelyn's repeated offers of other opportunities. This is who I am, he said. If we're building something real, it has to be built on truth. They hadn't rushed into romance. Instead, they'd built something deeper, a friendship rooted in radical honesty. Evelyn had met Emma, who adored her. Connor had attended business dinners, uncomfortable but present. They were learning each other slowly, carefully, without the pressure of expectations. One evening, as Connor poured her coffee, Emma tugged Evelyn's sleeve. Miss Evelyn, Daddy says you taught him that kindness is like planting seeds. You never know which ones will grow into something beautiful. Evelyn looked at Connor, whose eyes held everything unsaid between them. Gratitude, affection, possibility. Your daddy's right, Evelyn whispered, squeezing Emma's hand. And sometimes the most beautiful gardens grow from the smallest acts of compassion. A cup of coffee, a moment of grace, a choice to see someone when they feel invisible. Connor set down the pot and sat beside them. You know what I've learned? Kindness doesn't diminish when you share it. It multiplies. And sometimes one act of compassion can change 2 lives forever. Or 3, Emma said, hugging them both. Evelyn laughed through her tears, feeling truly wealthy for the first time in years. Because in the end, connection wasn't something money could buy. It was something that bloomed in the spaces between people who chose to truly see each other, who chose kindness, who chose to be present, authentic, and brave enough to let their hearts remain open. That was the only investment that ever really mattered. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment.